Hi, thanks for joining Taking Social Emotional Online. Social emotional skills are everywhere and we need them all the time. So, how can we do this when students aren't with us in our classrooms? We certainly don't want teachers feeling overwhelmed like it's not possible. And we also don't want students to go without these important skills when they are not in our classrooms. When I first started working in an online setting, it was really easy for me to say behavior skills, social skills, those aren't here. We don't have that in this environment. And I really had to learn very quickly to shift my thinking and focus on appropriate interactions in class, positive contributions, identifying stressors for children, taking turns, following rules and procedures, and supporting student well being. These were all things I did in my brick and mortar classroom. But when I was thinking social skills and behavior skills and emotional learning, I really started with what does that behavior look like walking in the hallway at recess, hearing kids say, he's touching me, he's touching my stuff, and things that go on in the lunchroom. But really and truly, anything that I could do in my brick and mortar classroom, I could bring to my online classroom. If I could show that um, PowerPoint, video clip, application share of some type on my whiteboard in my classroom, then I could do it in my online classroom as well. And we all know that social stories, role plays, showing video segments, TV shows, games, tons of different websites, lots of different Edmodo groups, different children's literature, all can be valuable resources when looking to help students grow their social emotional skills, even when they're not in your brick and mortar classroom. I want to take a minute and just show you how quickly you can access some of these resources. So, if instead of sharing my PowerPoint with you, I share my web browser, you can see if I'm looking for social stories, it doesn't take Google a minute to know what types of things I might be looking for. And you can also see how many hits it returns. Same thing for role plays for social skills. We have a teacher who works with our struggling readers who uses lots of readers theater opportunities in her class. The students love it. They are very engaged with that activity, and role plays can work the same way in an online setting. And again, videos. Google instinctively knows what kinds of things I might be looking for, and there's tons of options. When you're looking for videos, though, please be cautious. Do not just tell parents, oh, there's a video for that online. Please use your expertise to narrow these 19.5 million options down. Find one or two that might work well for that specific child and send the link to that specific video. And of course, children's books, one of the best ways to teach social skills. And you can see too, a quick Google search yields lots of different choices, and sharing a book online is easy, and you may even find somebody's already done the hard work for you, getting those the pictures, the audio together. That's probably already available, and you can share it with your students. There are lots of apps or websites like this one, calm.com. It gives you lots of different options so you can help calm kids. Just calm music to play in the background. How to find ease. These are things that can be helpful as well, along with centervention. And here they've got lots of free resources that you can use. Here's another great resource as well if you're looking at feeling stressed or mindfulness, and these are lessons you want to bring to your students. This website gives you lots of great things that you can actually do. And I would encourage you either in your online classroom or even on the phone, model these things for students. Let them see what it looks like when you do it, and then give them a chance to do it as well. And of course, our Edmodo group at the Charter Institute at Erskine provides us lots of great resources that we can use. So, back to our presentation. Many of our students have IEP goals that we need to address related to social emotional learning. So, how do we do this? When I'm looking at goals like this one for independent work or staying on task, I realize that I can monitor this even if the student and I are not in the same space because I can use Zoom, I can use Teams, I can use Google's resources for Google Meet, Google Classroom. You can use FaceTime, lots of different things that you can use to actually see students working. And you can set up a time to work with them. And during that time, just like you would in a brick and mortar classroom, you'll use your tally chart and you'll track, is the student working? Is the student on task? I can certainly teach a little mini lesson in my online classroom and then give students something to do while I'm still there with them in case they need help. And of course, as I'm monitoring this type of behavior live, I also want to think about what about the rest of the day? And you certainly can take input from the parent and the student. Some goals, though, are a little more tricky. This one talks about the effects of negative peer pressure, but it has lots of pieces that I can use because the student here is required to use a calm and assertive tone of voice, state clearly he does not want to participate, suggest an alternate activity, continue to say no if the person persists, and leave the situation if necessary. This is something I can't recreate exactly in an online setting. It's a lot harder for that negative peer pressure to be visible here in this setting than it would be in your classroom or recess. But if a student is going to be successful at this goal, there are lots of things I need to teach him so that he can put it all together and be successful in a social situation. So, in an online classroom, when working with this goal, I look at those prerequisite skills and think, what can I practice by phone or online? Can I role play here? Can I start to ask students, what are some things that your peers may ask you to do that you know you shouldn't? Can a child come up with those things? If I give a child a scenario where your friends have asked you to do blank, I know you don't want to do that. How will you tell them that that's not a good idea? And we would work to identify what is a calm and assertive tone. What does that look like and sound like for you? What are some alternate activities you can suggest to your group of friends? How do you leave a situation, especially in a school building, without getting yourself in trouble? These are all things that you can do on the phone or in an online classroom. Here's another one that's a little more difficult, when there's distance learning in place. Develop appropriate interpersonal skills, respecting personal space and maintaining appropriate distance. Again, I can't practice this exactly as it was intended now that everyone's working at home, but I can still help students be successful with goals like this one. Same as before, find those prerequisite skills. What does a student need to know? First, they need to know what personal space is and what is expected for personal space in our culture. Then I'm going to look at how can I practice this? And first thought, of course, is using a video. There are lots that you can show children. Understood.org has some great ones, one even titled How to Use Personal Space Here. And it's a 2-minute tutorial. So it's short, straight to the point, something that's easy for kids to digest. Other avenues to go. I need for kids to recognize what is appropriate personal space and what isn't. So can I show them the close talker from Seinfeld and ask, what do you see going on here? What are these people doing right? What are these people doing wrong? I can look at this center picture and say, what is this person using as a guide to help them maintain personal space? So there are lots of things I can show a student, and then I can find a host of pictures like these, display them for students, and ask them to identify the ones that are correct and the ones that are still needing some practice. And of course, if we're talking IEP goals, we're also going to eventually be talking about progress reporting. Some of the goals are going to be very easy. You can use the data you gather during your online sessions, and you can input that into the graph and enrich, and you can write some narrative about how you monitored that goal. Others are going to be a lot more difficult to plot on the graph that you had been using. In this situation, you're going to want to use the narrative portion and explain what skills you have been working on during this time and how the student did when asked to identify appropriate behaviors in what he could see online. How did that student do when engaging in a role play? Was he able to come up with alternate activities? How often? You could definitely report on student was able to identify an alternate activity on 3 of 6 attempts, or student was able to identify reasonable methods for removing himself from a situation during a school day. And what to do with this area when your IEP is due for annual review and you have to develop new goals. Of course, everything we put in an IEP needs to be data driven. So I need to start thinking, what can I observe now? What am I seeing in my online sessions, in my phone calls with students? And what can I measure? When I start with those two things, I'll be able to develop a goal that will help a student even when he's working in his home environment. And also keep in mind, what is appropriate for an IEP goal while students are distance learning may not be the most appropriate goal when you return to your brick and mortar classroom. And that's okay, because IEPs are working documents. And so I need my IEP to work for my student now as I'm developing it in this new environment. And then I'm going to need it to work for that student when he transitions back to my brick and mortar class. And if I need to, I can hold a special review. I hope I've answered some questions for you about working with students and their social emotional skills while distance learning. If you have questions or IEP goals you're struggling to address remotely, please don't hesitate to reach out. I'm always glad to help.